Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How is everybody? Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. This is Rush to Judgment with Jessica, and I'm Jessica. How's everybody doing? Everybody doing okay? We're making it, we're surviving. Everybody doing well? It's been a rainy, a gloomy day today, but that's okay because that is what I like. I am all for the rainy, gloomy days. So, um, we are still working on the Nicole Nachtman trial. And we have moved on to day 3. Woohoo! Um, we've gotten into the testimony of the roommates that she was supposed to room with in college. The judge had to talk with a couple because there were reports that a couple of them had been discussing the trial outside of the trial. And as witnesses, you are not supposed to discuss the trial outside of the trial with any other potential witnesses or anything like that prior to your testimony or anything like that. But a lot of people don't know that unless they've been instructed to or not to, whatever the case may be. They were state's witnesses. According to the prosecution, the state, they slipped through the cracks. They did not get a chance to let them know not to speak with each other or possibly watch the live stream since the trial was being live streamed at the time. But come to find out, there wasn't really any proof that they had been doing such things. They had been conversing together, but not about specifics of the trial or their testimonies or their depositions or such things. If you want, you can go back and catch up and watch the previous videos and see all of the hoopla before. You can do all of that. It is the video prior to this one. So, but yeah, we will get into the next one. Like I said, I'm gonna try to keep these videos between 1 to 2 hours, and where we get is where we get, but I'll try to stop them at a good stopping point. Yeah. And like I said, I chose this one because I like the judge involved, hoping that it might be a little bit interesting to watch. So far, it's been some interesting parts, but uh, not too mind blowing. But I mean, it's interesting in the way that I'm still curious why, but I don't know that you'll ever get the real full picture as to why this happened. But maybe the defense will come up with a better explanation when it's their turn, if they do have anything that they want to talk about. But yeah, so let's get into it. And I just want to remind everybody, I'm not an expert in any legal, I don't specialize in any particular area of educational information. I'm not a legal expert. I am just here to add my opinions and critical judgment on various topics or subjects that I find interesting right now. I've done trials and some true crime episodes. Again, you can go back and you can look through what I have what I've posted, and some videos. I highly recommend going back and looking at some true crime episodes. What's happened is some true crime episodes have led to looking into the trials that correlate with those true crime episodes. Kind of leads you down a rabbit hole a little bit. And eventually, I'll do more current events, things that I'm looking into doing, and possibly doing some live streaming to, to broaden my horizons. But, yeah, so this is what we have so far. But yeah, and I encourage you to like and comment and subscribe and let me know what you think in the comments. If you agree with me on any of the things that I say in here, if you don't agree, feel free to let me know. Comment. I most likely respond. We can have a back and forth, whatever you like. So yeah, let's get into it. I think it starts out with the roommates' testimonies and the people at school. So we'll start there.
I hope everyone had a nice lunch. We are still on schedule. I promise you that I will get you out of here by 3:30 today. We're going to pick up where we left off. I'm going to ask the state to please call their next witness. So call Petra Henry. Petra Henry.
This was the other roommate that was going to be in their dorm
Should be Petra Henry.
with them.
They were in
back there that stepped out. Overflow housing.
Miss Henry, welcome, and good afternoon. If you'll come forward to be sworn anywhere, if you'll face me and raise your right hand to be sworn to witness, thank you. You swear affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. If you'll follow the bailiff around to the ramp that leads up to the witness chair, please watch your step. When you get to the chair, go ahead and have a seat, make yourself comfortable. That microphone does adjust.
Good afternoon, Cindy.
Good afternoon.
If you please tell me your name and spell your last name for the court.
Petra Henry, Henry.
All right, and Ms. Henry, where do you live?
Currently, I live in Williamsburg, Virginia.
All right, what do you do up in Williamsburg?
Since I graduated from Florida State, I've been working at a humane society, the local humane society.
Okay. And
Oh,
when did you graduate
she's
from Florida
with the
State?
December 2018.
kitties and the puppies.
Did you ever go to any other school other than Florida State?
I went to the community college in Williamsburg for my first year of college. Yeah,
And then you transferred in on your sophomore year at Florida State?
correct.
All right. Back in August of 2015, were you still living permanently up in Williamsburg?
Yeah,
Okay.
until I came to Florida State.
All right. And when was that? That was not. When was that?
August 18th-ish
Okay.
of 2015.
Was it so August 18th? Is that when you were moving in?
It was sometime around there. I think I came down a little earlier because we went down south to visit my aunt.
Okay. So did someone come with you when you?
My dad did, yeah.
Your dad.
Mhm.
Do you recall arriving at Florida State?
Yes.
Right, and you said it was the 18th. Do you recall was it morning, afternoon, evening when you first got there?
I don't recall, no.
Did you have a permanent assigned room?
No, I was in overflow housing in Smith Hall because I guess they were out of dorms at the time that I got there.
Okay. But had you submitted an application to live on campus?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And we had been emailing the director of housing a lot, too.
Okay. But for the time being, they were putting you in overflow housing with the understanding or belief or hope that you were going to get put into permanent housing soon.
Right.
So did you spend that first night, that Wednesday night in the room?
I did.
Who else was in the dorm room?
Mariel.
Right. Anyone else with you at that time?
Nope.
Right. Going to the next day, the 19th, what did you do that day?
I had orientation for Florida State, so that started at like 6:30 a.m. and then you were done by lunchtime.
Okay. And did you go back and forth to your dorm room on that day?
I left at 6:30.
All right. Did you ever go back to the dorm that night?
I believe I slept there that night.
Okay. Why do you say you believe?
It's so long ago, it's hard to remember, but I think it did. Right?
Had you heard by this point whether or not you had permanent housing?
No.
Okay. When did you find out that you had permanent housing?
The day that I met Nicole.
Okay. What day? Do you recall what day that was?
I think it was the 21st.
Okay. And when did you first meet? And well, let me ask you this. So you know who Nicole Nachtman is?
I do.
And the first time you met her was on the 21st of August of 2015?
Mm-hmm.
You said yes?
Yes,
Okay. And do you see Ms. Nachtman in the courtroom here today?
I do.
Okay. Can you point her out and identify the piece of clothing that she's wearing?
A bluish sweater.
Okay. Record reflects she identified the defendant here.
She also reflect.
What do you remember what dorm you were in for the overflow housing?
Smith Hall.
So that morning when you first saw Nicole,
She already said that.
when did you first see her? Describe to the jury what it was when you first saw her.
So I walked into the dorm room and my intentions were to pack up my things and because I had got a spot in permanent housing and I was surprised to see a new roommate in there. She was sitting up on the top bunk. My bed was the lower one. There was no sheets on the bed. I saw a suitcase open and empty on the floor and she was just sitting up there with a blanket wrapped around her.
Okay. Did you talk to her at all?
Yeah, it was very nice. I introduced myself. We shook hands. I noticed that she was upset, so I asked her what was wrong, and she told me her mom just died. And I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. What happened?" And she said, "I don't know. Detectives are flying in later." And I said, "Okay, well, I understand if you don't want to be around anybody right now, but my dad and my sister are about to come up here to help me pack my things and move into my permanent dorm." And she didn't say anything. She just got up and left, and I never saw her again.
Okay. So that was the only interaction you had with Nicole Nachtman.
Yes.
Eventually did the police contact you?
Later that day when I was moving into my new dorm, yeah, I was questioned by detectives, police.
All right. And did you go down to the station to give a statement?
No.
Okay, they came to wherever you were?
Mhm.
All right, yes?
Yes, it was in my dorm room.
And since then, have you had any more contact with Nicole Nachtman or the business?
No.
No further questions, please.
Cross-examination.
Afternoon, Senator.
Good afternoon.
Now, you were basically a transfer student coming into Florida State from the community college you were attending,
Correct.
and you had not been assigned permanent housing at the point that you arrived in Tallahassee.
I don't like her.
No.
She's
And
mean.
this overflow housing is basically for people who either apply late or maybe you are low on the total as far as housing goes, and you have to sit in overflow housing until permanent housing becomes available.
Mm-hmm.
Is that your understanding?
Yes.
And the overflow housing that you were assigned was this student lounge or study lounge in Smith Hall that they had basically converted into a temporary room with bunk beds, dressers, things like that.
Yes.
It's not a huge room, right?
No.
At the time you first met Ms. Nachtman, you indicated you showed up in the room from orientation or wherever you had been, and you see that you have a new roommate.
Yes.
And when you see her, she's sitting on the top bunk and has no sheets on the bunk bed.
Correct.
And she's covered with a blanket.
Yes.
You indicated you observed her crying, is that correct?
Yes.
And you obviously, this is the first time you had seen this individual.
Yes.
You also recall her mumbling something or not really being able to make out what she was saying.
I think she was on her phone, so I'm not sure.
Okay. Did you hear anything about the phone conversation or who she may have been talking to or anything like that?
Nope.
When you first observed her, she appeared tired to you,
Disheveled, I would say.
kind of a mess.
Yes.
Poor hygiene,
Yes.
not kept, not bathed, hair a mess, I mean, all of that.
Yes.
You introduced yourself and then obviously asked her what was wrong because you had seen her crying.
Yeah.
And that's when she tells you her mother had died and that there were detectives on the way to kind of tell her what had happened.
I suppose.
What do you mean you suppose?
She said she didn't know how she died, so yeah.
But then she told you detectives were on the way to talk to her about whatever had happened.
She
to her
never
mother.
said they were coming to talk to her. She just said they were flying in later.
Okay. And then a few minutes after that, she gets up and leaves and you never see Nicole Nachtman again.
Right.
Now, when I asked you about this mumbling and you indicated she was on a phone, do you recall giving a deposition back in October of 2017 about this case?
Yes.
And do you recall myself, Mr. Terry, I believe, asking you questions about this incident?
Yes.
In October of 2017 would have been 2 years after the incident, is that right?
Yes.
Do you remember, I'm on page 12, line 10, do you remember being asked the question, did you ever see her on her phone or hear her talking to anybody while you were in the room with her? And your answer, no. I didn't hear her talking to anybody. I might have heard her mumbling some things. I didn't know she was talking to me or what she was doing. I just kind of ignored it. Question, mumbling like she's talking to herself or like she's on the phone with somebody? Answer, I didn't see a phone. So I'm assuming she was either talking to herself or talking to me. You remember telling me that in that deposition?
Yes, but when I gave my initial statement to the detectives right after, I did say she was on her phone. So at this point in time, I don't remember if there was a phone or not, but I would go with there was a phone because that's what I told police right after.
But at one point you did characterize it as mumbling one way or the other.
Yes.
Nothing you could make out.
Yes.
I can have a minute.
Yes.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you, Senator.
Redirect.
Yeah.
May this witness be excused by the state
Yes, you may.
and excused by the defense?
Yes.
Thank you. You may step down and you may be excused from the
Thank
witness. I'll ask the state to call your next witness.
Jessica Gilbert.
Jessica Gilbert. Ms. Gilbert, welcome. And good afternoon. If you'll come forward to be sworn, wherever you're comfortable, if you'll face me and raise your right hand, please. Thank you. Do you swear any testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. If you'll follow the bailiff around to the ramp that leads up to the witness chair, please watch your step. When you get to the chair, go ahead and have a seat. Make yourself comfortable. You may proceed.
Thank you.
I hope I
afternoon.
muted that,
Hi,
Please state your full name.
or else y'all just heard all of that.
Jessica Gilbert, Gilbert.
Hey, Jessica. Hey, girl. Hey.
I currently live in Blacksburg, Virginia.
And are you working?
I am.
In what capacity?
I am a residential learning coordinator at Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University.
I want to turn your attention back to August of 2015. Were you a student at Florida State at that time?
I was not.
Okay. Were you employed with Florida State at that time?
Yes.
In what capacity?
I was a program assistant with Florida State University's housing department, working in their contracts and assignments office.
And how long did you work in that position?
I was in that position for 4 years,
From when to when?
from May 2013 to July 2017.
Tell us what that job entailed. What were your duties?
So as a program assistant, I was the first point of contact for a lot of students or families that had questions or concerns about living on campus at Florida State. And I did some contract and occupancy management and assigned students to spaces on campus.
The work that you did sort of talking to parents and assigning students to places, was this work more in person or more through email or telephone contact?
It was a bit of a mixture of both. I definitely saw more family and student interaction in person during orientation season. So from like May to July, there was a high amount of students and families that came in and talked to me. Other than that, most of it was through email and phone.
Did you ever take any role in checking students
That's
into housing, or was your role more prior to that point?
Not as a program assistant.
Okay. Back in August of 2015, do you recall having email communication with an individual by the name of Nicole Nachtman?
Yes.
Did you ever meet Nicole Nachtman in person?
No.
All of your contact with Nicole Nachtman, actually communication back and forth, was that all through email or telephone?
Yes.
Turning your attention back to that time, August, July of 2015, do you recall, or in your role, are you aware of phone conversations that were had with Ms. Nachtman and Florida State Housing Department?
Yes.
And when was that first phone conversation?
The first phone conversation was, I think, in around mid or late July. I don't remember the specific date. Ms. Nachtman spoke with one of our student assistants that answered the telephones and asked about on-campus housing for fall 2015.
Okay, and what do you recall as of today's date, have you had an opportunity to review documents of those communications that Florida State Housing Departments had with Nicole Nachtman?
Yes.
Okay. And is that how you're aware of communication she may have had with people other than yourself, but still in that department?
Yes.
Okay. So if you can, my understanding is that in July, the communication was her asking about housing for the fall.
Yes.
And do you recall what was expressed to her or told to her at that time?
So to my knowledge, Ms. Nachtman was
Well, I gotta put the diaper on the
as a returning
dog.
resident to on-campus housing, and she had missed the deadline for returning as a returning student, and that contract timeline closed in January 2015. And so she had contacted us needing on-campus housing. we were not able to provide her with a contract right away. And so we added her name to a waiting list. And if we were able to offer her anything, we would contact her via email.
Okay. And what did your records reflect as to when the next communication with Ms. Nachtman was?
The next communication was the week of August 18th. And she contacted our office again and spoke with a different student assistant and asked about on-campus housing. And at the time, she did not have a contract.
Okay. So on August 18th, your records reflect that she again called to find out about where she was on this wait list.
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
that accurate? The records, I'm sorry, strike that. At that point, you said that, again, she was told she did not have a spot yet. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. When was the next communication with Ms. Nachtman after that?
So she had called the morning of August 18th, and shortly after the conversation that she had with the student assistant, I received notice from my supervisor, Jamie Kirkstra, that we were able to offer spaces to about 5 students for overflow housing. And Ms. Nachtman was in that list. And so I notified her via email around 11:30 a.m., offering her a spot on campus.
And then this was on the morning of around 11:30 a.m. on the morning of August 19th. Is that correct?
I thought it was the 18th, but I could have been mistaken.
No objection to the introduction of this.
Okay. Judge States, we move to introduce State's Exhibit number 50.
It'll be admitted.
Thank you. And that's for Commissioner publish.
You may publish it.
All right. Ms. Gilbert, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you on the overhead there, and you can look to your screen there in front of you. Do you recognize this email, or do you recognize this document that I'm showing you?
I do.
And what does this appear to be?
This is the offer email.
Okay. And have you seen this email prior to now?
Yes.
Okay. We see at the top from Nicole Nachtman to Jessica Gilbert. Would that be you?
Yes.
Okay. And then sort of further down, it says on Wednesday, August 19th, 2015, you wrote an email to Nicole Nachtman.
Yes,
Does that kind of refresh your memory as to when you sent her the offer email?
it does.
And is this in fact that offer email that you're referring to?
It is.
This email goes on and it appears that there's some sort of form language in there. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And on the next page of the email, we see that it's signed by Jamie Kirkstra Ropes. Who is that?
Jamie Kirkstra Ropes is my former supervisor. She's the assistant director for contracts and assignments at Florida State.
Okay. And so was it common for you to send emails like this essentially on her behalf?
Yes.
Page 3 of State's Exhibit 50, is this in fact the comments attached to that email? You recall receiving this back from Ms. Nachtman?
Yes.
And do you recall when you received it back, if you sent it on August the 19th at around 11:30 a.m.?
I received the scanned copy of the contract after 5 o'clock on the 19th. And so I had already left for the day and did not process it until the following morning.
Okay. And at the top of the email, we see a date and time of August the 19th at 5:28 p.m. Does that appear to be correct to you as to when you received the scanned contract back?
Yes.
And you said that you processed it the next morning, which would have been the morning of August the 20th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. In the notes that you reviewed and that you've spoken about here today, you indicated that FSU received phone calls in July and then in August from Nicole Nachtman. Did your records ever indicate that you received any calls from Miriam Deans?
No.
Ms. Gilbert, I'm just going to show you State's Exhibit 40. Does this, do you recognize this?
Yes.
Okay, and what do you recognize this to be?
It is a fall 2015, spring 2016 housing contract.
And is this the same contract that we saw on State's Exhibit 50 just sort of by itself?
I believe so.
Diaper on a dog is
During the
funny.
section we're having State's Exhibit 40. Okay.
It'll be admitted.
Okay, and I'm showing you this here. Do you recognize this to be the same contract that she signed or that was attached to the prior email that we just looked at?
Yes.
Okay. Towards the bottom, we see emergency contact information filled in. Would all of this information have been filled out by Nicole Nachtman herself
Yes.
and then sent back to your office?
Yes.
In addition to the contract, was there another item that Ms. Nachtman would have had to send in to secure her place?
She would have needed to pay a $100 deposit to solidify her contract before we could assign her to a space.
And when you say assign her to a space, does that also include assign her to overflow?
Yes,
Do you recall whether or not that deposit was sent in?
it was.
Okay, and do you recall when it was sent in?
It was sent in shortly after we received, or after I processed the contract the morning of the 20th, because I believe she received her assignment later in the afternoon.
Later in the afternoon of the 20th, she received her assignment.
I believe so.
And when you say received her assignment, you mean like she was told the specific room or whatever that she would be assigned to?
Yes.
At the time that you received this scanned contract back, do you know if the deposit had been paid at that point yet, or if it was after that?
It was after that. Our fiscal staff needed to put the deposit on Ms. Nachtman's account before or after we received the contract.
Thank you, Ms. Gilbert. I'll pass the witness.
Cross-examination?
Good afternoon, Ms. Gilbert.
Hello.
Now, you had indicated the way housing worked when you worked there back in August of 2015. Upperclassmen had pretty much priority or different deadlines, let's say, than an incoming freshman would for housing.
Yes.
For an upperclassman or somebody in Ms. Nachtman's position returning would have been in January of 15 to have their housing contract or paperwork in and secured by that point. Is that correct?
Yes.
And typically, obviously, common sense tells us that upperclassmen have priority over freshmen if they're returning to campus housing.
Yes.
That's the reason for the different deadlines.
Yes.
And as far as your records show, Ms. Nachtman was in fact an upperclassman and was returning to Florida State Housing that fall term of August of 2015.
Yes.
Now, an upperclassman like Ms. Nachtman would have received some type of email notification from housing before the January 15 deadline to let her know, if you plan on coming back, this is what you need to do, or this is the deadline.
Yes.
So that's typically common if you've lived in housing before, or if as in Ms. Nachtman's position, you send out kind of that deadline so she knows when she needs to get her paperwork in.
Yes.
But as far as the records you reviewed, the first contact Ms. Nachtman makes with housing to find out or to inquire whether she has something available is July of 15.
Correct.
So she's now almost 7 months past that January deadline. Is that correct?
Yes.
Are you gonna say it's because she doesn't
I'm gonna show
understand
you
how to do
states
it?
50. Can you see that?
Yes.
And so the reason we know the July date is when she called is that call note that lists on July 13th of 15 at 1:06 p.m. Somebody with the housing office logged in a phone call. And again, we know it's Nicole Nachtman because I guess this is her account. You
Yes.
see her name up at the top, right?
Yes.
And this is all part of you all's housing computer system, right?
Correct.
Okay. So that July date and how we now know it was July when she first inquires is because that's what this activity log appears to show.
Correct.
So by July, she's already 7 months past the deadline to get a housing assignment.
You
Yes.
said that. Thank
And then I
you.
believe that same document I just showed you doesn't show any other communications or contact until August 19th. And let me put that back up, I'm sorry, states 50. The next call indicates she calls back about a month later, a little more than a month, to see what's going on, what's with her housing situation. And she's advised at that time that there still isn't an assignment.
Correct.
And that would have been August 19th, and it's logged in about 11:15 in the morning.
Yes.
Then it appears later on the 19th, and according to this call log, at 11:31 is when an email is sent to her from you indicating that there's now at least an overflow spot for her.
Correct.
And this overflow process is literally a moment-to-moment thing. You'd agree?
Yes.
Okay. So you literally, the student, as soon as you find out, as you did in this situation, that your supervisor has given you 5 spots in overflow, as soon as you find that out, you try and notify the student, because this is move-in week.
Yes.
Typically.
The 19th was the day that the halls had opened.
So this is literally a moment-to-moment. I'm assuming housing is, it's very fluid. People are backing out, students are deciding not to come, and literally at any given moment, you could find out, I have a spot now I can offer this student.
Correct.
And that's what happened here, it appears, on the 19th, because not even 16 minutes later is when the email said, oh, we have a spot.
Yes.
Okay. And it
What is
wasn't
your
a phone
point?
call, it was done via email.
Correct.
So you have to assume that that person or the student isn't going to get the notification until they access their email versus a phone call where you're calling them immediately.
Yes.
Now, you indicated that the housing deposit to secure the contract at the time was $100.
Correct.
And isn't it in fact true that the housing records that you've reviewed in Ms. Nachtman's file indicate she actually requested a reduction in the deposit to $75?
Correct.
And that was granted to her.
Yes.
And then
She
once
didn't
the
mention
actual,
that.
so the contract isn't secured until that payment is received and processed through finance and all that.
Correct.
So while Ms. Nachtman got the notification on the 19th at 11:30 or so, I have a space, it doesn't mean that that space is secured until the money exchanges hands and is processed at the Florida State Housing Unit.
Correct.
And so the final assignment, payment received, you have a spot, occurs on August 20th at 2:55 PM.
Correct.
And I think Ms. Derry asked you this, in nowhere in Ms. Nachtman's file, housing, or anything, did you see any communications at any point from her mom asking about housing or payments from mom, Miriam Beans, or anything like that?
I did not.
You have a moment?
Yes.
I want to show you States 40, which is the actual contract.
Sorry, my ear inches. I didn't mean to pause it.
Where there appears to be a signature by Nicole Nachtman on, it looks like the 19th of August, and then there's a spot for a parent or guardian, and that's blank.
Correct.
How old is she?
Just very briefly, Judge.
She doesn't need a parent or guardian. She is an
I wanted
upperclassman.
to ask you about
I'm
something.
assuming she is
Um,
18 and over.
This
She doesn't
document right here in
need.
the first communication, FLPPD, what does that stand for?
Florida prepaid dormitory plan. I think yeah, that's correct.
So the indication was that Nicole Nachtman had Florida prepaid and needed to be on campus.
Yes.
Thank you, nothing further.
May this be excused by the state
Yes, sir.
and by the defense.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. You may be excused as a witness at this time. I'll ask the state to call
Am
your
I
witness.
missing
Christina
something?
Chiotti,
Christina Chiotti.
I mean, I didn't live on campus when I went to college, but I also
Chiotti, good afternoon.
didn't need my
Swear
mom
wherever you're
and
comfortable to face me
dad's
and raise your right hand,
signatures
please.
to do
Thank you.
anything
You swear affirm any testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and
because
nothing but the
I
truth, so
myself
help you
was
God.
my own
I shall
guardian.
follow the bailiff around to the ramp that leads up to the witness chair. Please watch your step.
Unless she, for some reason, has them as
When
their
you get to the chair,
legal
go and have a seat, make
guardian
yourself comfortable. You need to put something down, that's fine.
for some other
And that
reasons
microphone
that
is
they
just-
have yet to mention.
You may proceed.
thank you, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please state your full name and spell
Or
your last
maybe
name.
they should have made
I'm
that
Christina Chiotti, CHIODI,
Thank you. Where are you currently
or
living?
yeah,
in Tallahassee,
whatever.
Florida.
And are you a student there? Are you working there?
I'm currently a medical student there.
I want to turn your attention back to August of 2015. Were you enrolled at Florida State at that time?
Yes, as an undergraduate.
Okay. And at that time, in August of 2015, were you also working at Florida State in some capacity?
Yes, as a resident assistant.
What does a resident assistant do?
A resident assistant is a student employee of university housing at FSU. And our job is really to be accessible and present for the residents that live within our assigned hall. We prepare the rooms before they get to FSU. We facilitate the check-in process. And again, we're present throughout the year until they check out at the end of the year.
In August of 2015, what resident hall were you assigned to?
Smith Hall.
Do you recall having contact with an individual by the name of Nicole Nachtman in August of 2015?
I checked her into the building at Smith Hall.
Okay. Do you recall what date that was that you checked her in?
I don't recall the date, but I know it was a Friday.
Okay, Friday in August. When you checked her in that Friday in August, what was going on that week at Florida State?
It was just a check-in week. New students were arriving to campus, and as they came in, we just were checking them into the building so they could get all moved in for the year.
Had classes started yet at that point?
No.
When were classes scheduled to start as it related to that week?
The following Monday.
Okay. So classes would have started following Monday the week before. Was that a pretty common week for check-in and moving into dorms to take place?
That's the only week for people to begin to move in. Yeah.
Okay. Had you ever had contact with Nicole Nachtman prior to that Friday?
No.
Okay. Did you know her at all prior to that?
No.
Ever worked with her as a resident assistant in any other hall?
No.
Your role on that Friday at Smith Hall, was it, you described a resident assistant's role, were you primarily assigned to be checking students in at that time?
Yes, I was assigned the morning check-in duty, which essentially consists of giving them paperwork to fill out, going over the rules and regulations of living on campus, and then giving them access to their assigned room.
Were you the first contact person to give these students access to that hall?
Yes.
Okay. Prior to making contact with you, students who are going to be living in that hall, would they have had access to the hall through a key or a card?
I'm not entirely sure. They might be able to use their FSU ID to swipe in. For some students, that doesn't work, so we have to open the door. Normally during check-in week, we have the door open and they come to the check-in desk and then they get their key to their actual room.
Okay. And your contact with Nicole Nachtman on that Friday, tell us what that consisted of. What do you recall about that?
It was relatively brief. The check-in process isn't really a laborious thing. I had her fill out some forms and then again went over the rules of the building and then gave her key. It was like any other check-in that I had conducted throughout the week.
And you said you were assigned to morning check-in duties, is
Yes.
that right? So during what hours were you checking students in?
Between 8 and 12, 8 and 1, somewhere.
Do you recall about what time it was that you had contact with Miss Nachtman on that Friday morning?
It was somewhere earlier in my shift. I want to say probably around like 9:30 or so.
If I showed you a calendar from August of 2015, would that refresh your recollection as to the date?
Probably yes.
You could take a look at that calendar.
It would have been the 21st.
Okay, and after looking at the calendar, does that refresh your memory as to what date it was that you had contact with her?
Yes,
And what date was it?
the 21st of August.
Okay. You said it was about 9 a.m. that you checked her in, you believe?
Yeah.
Was she alone when you checked her in?
Yes.
Do you recall if she had anything with her?
I'm not entirely sure. I don't remember.
Do you recall anything notable about her demeanor?
No, like I said, it was just like any other check-in. Everything seemed fairly normal.
Do you recall if she was crying?
No.
No, she was not, or no, you don't recall?
No, she was not crying. Sorry.
And where do you recall that you checked her into? What was going to be her assigned room?
She was assigned an overflow space. It would have been 01 as the ending numbers. I want to say that it was 801, but it's been quite a few years, so I'm not entirely sure.
Thank you. I'll pass the witness.
Cross-examination.
Good afternoon, Mr. Yoder.
Good afternoon.
Now, the hall that you were working on the morning of August 21st when you had contact with Ms. Nachtman was Smith Hall.
Smith Hall, yes.
And for students, because you worked in housing, who hadn't secured either housing in time or maybe were low on the list as far as priority, would be assigned what's called overflow housing, which is the temporary housing until a permanent place can be found.
Girl.
Yes, and also sometimes the overflow housing, if no vacancies open up throughout campus, that will be converted into their permanent living situation.
So that could have been possible depending on whether students withdraw or there's adequate space available.
Right, it just depends on the students that had the secured housing. Once they checked in, if there were any vacancies, then housing would then further move them to.
In Smith Hall, where you were working that day, the actual assigned overflow housing was really like a lounge that had been converted with bunk beds and dressers. Is that your recollection?
Yes,
And that's the area where Ms. Nachtman had been assigned.
yes,
Typically, upperclassmen have priority in on-campus housing if they're returning to on-campus housing, right?
correct. If they submit their appropriate documentation in time, yes.
In fact, you found it strange that when you looked up or saw that Ms. Nachtman was an upperclassman, that she didn't have an assigned spot, that instead she had this overflow assignment.
Right.
Because either sophomores or juniors or seniors, if you've lived on campus before, you would have typically had priority, assuming you got your paperwork in and did what you were supposed to do.
Right. Normally, the certain timeline, because the new incoming students would get admitted later in the year, so upperclassmen would have the opportunity to submit their paperwork in prior to new students even getting accepted.
And then your actual space for housing isn't secured until they receive your deposit and it's processed.
Yes, and you receive a priority number accordingly.
Now, the process at the time, back in August of 2015, by which a student would be notified of their assignment or whether they got overflow housing, would have been through, I guess there was something called a housing portal,
Yes,
where it would have your roommate information and it would notify you of an assignment if there was one and things like that.
yes,
And each student, I'm assuming who has housing, has one of these accounts or portals they can access.
yes,
You indicated you recall Ms. Nachtman coming on that Friday, the 21st at about 9 in the morning.
yes,
You said she was by herself.
yes,
And the check-in process is obviously I'm assuming you have a roster or forms of people for Smith Hall in front of you. And you look at their ID and you verify this whole check-in, that this is the person checking in and what their assignment is.
Right.
So there's an actual, I guess, verification process when someone checks in where you can document when you made contact with them, whether you verified their ID, and told them where they were gonna be living.
We have a roster with all of their names, and we have an area where they sign, and then they fill out an information card about themselves, and then, any allergies, things like that. And then they sign a commitment to community, which are agreeing to all the rules and regulations of living within the building.
And that would have all happened with Ms. Nachtman at 9 a.m. on the 21st. This check-in
Approximately,
process you
yes.
described. Now, at first, you couldn't locate her name on the roster. Do you remember that?
Yes, that morning I had been given a sticky note with a couple of names that had been added to different overflow spaces. So I had handwritten on the roster about 3 or so names, and Ms. Nachtman's name was one of them.
So you had your printed roster, which I'm assuming are all the people that got their stuff in on time.
Right.
And then because housing's so fluid and it's a moment-to-moment thing where somebody may back out or you may make an assignment, Ms. Nachtman wasn't even on the actual printed roster. You had been told either by somebody in housing or a supervisor, we've offered her a space, so handwrite her in, basically.
Yes.
You remember Ms. Nachtman being quiet and reserved.
Yes.
Like rude.
And after that brief contact at 9 a.m. to check her in, you never saw her again.
I was later taken down to the police station to be questioned, and while I was there, she was also there.
Okay, so
Aside from that, though, no.
But no contact as
No,
far as
no,
conversations or
no.
anything. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Redirect.
No redirect, Judge.
May this witness be excused by the state
Yes, sir.
and by the defense?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. You may step down and be excused as a witness at this time.
Thank you.
I'll ask the state to call your next witness.
Gail Berghorn?
Gail Berghorn.
Yes, sir.
Who?
Thank you.
If I could have you raise your right hand, thank you. Do you swear affirmative testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. If you'll follow the bailiff around to the ramp that leads up to the witness stand. Please watch your step. When you get to the chair, go ahead and have a seat, make yourself comfortable. That microphone does adjust the temperature.
Thank you. Could you please state your, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your full name and spell your last name for the record?
Gail A. Berghorn,
Oh,
Berghorn.
that's a Dale. I was expecting a
All right, Ms.
guy.
Berghorn, are you employed?
I am.
And where are you employed?
I work for a government consulting company called Sava Workforce Solutions, who has a contract with the DEA Digital Forensics Lab, SFL 9. I work in their Utah lab,
Okay, and how long have you been employed in that position?
approximately 4 years.
Prior to that, were you employed with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement here in Tampa?
Yes, I was.
Okay, and in what capacity?
I was a digital forensics criminal lab analyst,
Okay, how long were you employed as a digital forensics criminal lab analyst?
approximately 4 years.
Tell us, if you could, about your background as it pertains to digital forensics. How long have you been employed in the field involving digital forensics?
I started working in digital forensics in 2011, where I took an intensive 1-year training with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, where I took internal and external trainings in digital forensics, read books, took tests, did proficiencies, competencies to learn how to do digital forensics. From there, I worked for FDLE for approximately 3 years, doing examinations on all different kinds of digital forensics, digital media, computers, cell phones, laptops, cameras, thumb drives. And from there, I went to Utah to work in a DEA laboratory.
Okay, tell us about your educational background.
I have a bachelor's in biology and about over 30 years of experience in the computer industry.
The 30 years of experience in the computer industry, is that
I'll
from
be right back.
education or employment? Explain that.
I was a systems administrator and IT manager for a nonprofit.
Tell us about the training that you received at FDLE as a part of your employment in digital forensics.
After the 1-year intensive training that I took, I also took yearly trainings in cell phones and forensic tools that we use. And while I work for DEA, I also take yearly trainings in different certifications and different types of forensic tools that I use.
Have you, or whether that was it or whether there's been additional, have you received specialized training in digital and evidence and digital forensics?
Yes, I just recently, in 2018, took a training with the SANS training for Windows digital forensics.
And had you, I guess, during your time at FDLE, while you did digital forensics, did you also receive specialized training just in that field?
In digital forensics?
Yes.
Yes.
During your time when you were employed both at the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and I guess in your current capacity, but more so when you were at FDLE, were you required as a part of your employment to stay up to date on current literature and technology in that area?
Yes, we were.
And were you required to do continuing education as it pertained to that field?
Yes, and we also had competencies and proficiencies every year to make sure that we were up to date with our techniques.
Did you hold any certifications in that area?
I currently hold 3 certifications. One is the International Association for Computer Investigative Specialists, IASIS. I have a certification of digital forensics with them, and I'm also a peer coach for students who are trying to attain that certification. I have one through NCASE, NCASE is a digital forensics software that is used to perform digital forensics on different types of media. And I have my SANS certification. It's called the GCFE, GIAC, Computer Forensic Examiner certification.
Tell us about your duties and responsibilities on a day-to-day basis when you were employed at FDLE as a digital forensics analyst.
Nope, don't care.
All right, you ready to proceed?
As part of your job at FDLE, and I think you told us a little bit about it, but tell us about what types of evidence you received to analyze and work with.
Computers, laptops, cell phones, digital cameras, thumb drives, SD cards, micro SD cards, all sorts, anything that can be stored electronically.
And how is it that you actually analyze these items? Tell us like what you would do. We'll start with the cell phone. What would you do when you received a cell phone?
When I received the case from my supervisor, I would go to the evidence intake section, and from there they would change the chain of custody over to me. I had an office where I could lock the door, so the evidence was securely stored in that office. From there, I would examine the evidence because it's always contained either in a bag or manila envelope or some sort of sealed container. From there, I would take pictures of the container, making sure that there was no rips or tears to see that it's completely sealed. I would then open it up, verify that I had evidence in there, again, taking pictures if it was still sealed in another envelope. After I got the evidence out, I would make sure that it was not damaged, or if it was damaged, it was documented. Take pictures of it, make sure that I'm looking at the correct piece of evidence as is stated in the case form that I'm given. At that point, I would then identify the evidence with my initials and the exhibit number, taking pictures of that. And then from there, I would decide how to proceed with the examination.
As a digital forensics analyst, are you
Say a lot of words.
No,
Do you take any role in determining what items that you're extracting are relevant to a particular case?
no,
Do you take any role in modifying or changing that evidence prior to turning it over to law enforcement?
no.
I want to turn your attention
No.
specifically to FDLE case number 2015.
I just examine things they give me.
174 involving a subject by the name of Nicole Nachtman. Were you involved in that case as a digital forensics analyst?
Yes.
No, so
When
why
did
the
you
fuck am
receive- or
I
when did you
here?
become involved in that case?
Oh,
I became
so
involved in
yeah,
the case when the case
probably.
was assigned to me by my supervisor.
And do you recall approximately when that was?
Your Honor, may I check my notes?
To refresh your recollection, yes, you have.
Thank you. I was assigned the case on November 6th, 2015.
And at that time, when you were assigned the case in November 6th of 2015, did you actually receive evidence at that time or on a later date?
That's when I took custody of the evidence.
Where was the evidence?
The evidence was stored at the FDLE regional office in Tampa, Florida, and it was in the evidence intake section.
When the evidence is stored at that location, is it stored in a secure manner?
Yes, it is.
And when you take
Nope.
custody of it, is it always documented who at FDLE might have custody of it?
Yes, we have a laboratory management system that keeps track of where the evidence is located, and I actually have to digitally sign for the evidence.
Right? And you already told us that when you have the evidence in your office locks, and so then it is secured in that manner. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. What is it that you actually received in this case?
A cell phone,
Do you recall what type of cell phone?
if I can refer to my notes.
It'll help refresh your recollection.
Yes. It was an LG Optimus F60 cellular phone.
Okay. And do you recall if it contained anything within that cell phone?
It contained a SIM card and a micro SD card.
Is that common?
Yes, it is.
When you received this item, tell us how was it packaged? What condition was it in?
It was packaged in a brown envelope, and then it was also packaged in a unsealed plastic envelope and or a bag, and it was damaged. The screen was shattered.
Okay. When you say an unsealed plastic bag, was
Oh.
that inside of the manila or brown envelope?
Yes, that was sealed.
And the manila or brown envelope?
Yes, the manila envelope was sealed.
Ms. Berghorn, I'm showing you what's been pre-marked for identification in State's Exhibit 42 without showing the contents of that to the jury. If you could take a look inside that packaging and look at the items inside there and let us know if you recognize markings on those.
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize markings on those?
I have my date and initials on the envelope.
Okay. And the actual item inside there, do you recognize that to be the cell phone that you work on?
I hate evidence opening. I hate it. Wrestle, wrestle, wrestle. I bet it's the phone.
Yes, I do.
Okay. So you've indicated to us that you received one LG cell phone and that was the item that you then later performed the extraction that you tell us about as a part of your regular duties on. Was this in fact the cell phone that you performed that extraction on?
Yes, it was.
So tell us, when you received that specific cell phone, what exactly do you do?
Well, once I received the phone, I take pictures of it because it was damaged. I made that note that it was damaged. And from there, I made sure that the phone was fully charged so I could use two cell phone forensic software tools to extract information from it. I used a industry standard tool called Cellbrite to do a physical image of the
Yeah, I've
hard
heard
drive.
about that
Not the hard
before.
drive, but the cell phone. And then magnetic forensics, internet evidence finder to find additional information.
Tell us, what is Cellbrite?
Cellbrite is a mobile device extraction software where you can hook up different types of phones and it will extract the information out of that phone.
Is this a program that you've received training on?
Yes, it is.
Program that you've used before?
Yes, it is.
And the second thing you said was an internet evidence finder?
Yeah, magnetic forensics internet evidence finder is a forensic tool that you can use on mobile devices, and it extracts out Android artifacts.
Was this phone an Android phone?
Yes.
So is that program specific to use with phones that have Android?
Magnetic forensics internet evidence software is used on hard drives and cell phones and Apple phones.
Okay, so you can use it on other types of phones?
Yes, you can.
All right. Is that a program that you're familiar with and that you've received training on?
Yes, it is.
A program that you've also used before?
Yes, it is.
Okay. During your utilization of these two programs with this specific phone, did you encounter any bugs or glitches?
No, I did not.
And about how long did the download or extraction with those programs take in this case?
I can't tell you an exact time. I made no notes that it was time that was not, there was no unusual time in extracting the information.
Okay. Is it common that it takes a long time to take the information out of the phone?
For some phones it is.
Okay. And I guess we should say, what is a common amount of time that it would take to extract on a phone like this?
For this type of a phone, it might take a couple of hours.
When the information is extracted, and I guess was Cellbrite the program that you used first?
Yes, it was.
Okay. So we'll talk about Cellbrite first. When the information is extracted with Cellbrite, are you able to read that information or to view it?
Yeah, Cellbrite parses out or breaks out the information by it takes like all the emails, all the text messages, all the location information, the calendar information, contacts, things like that, and puts them into different categories so you can then look at each different category of information.
Does it also give you information on sort of the basics of the phone, the model of the phone number, like serial number, things like that?
Yes, it will give you the device information.
And are you able to use that information to sort of cross-reference it back to the actual phone itself to make sure it's all in fact the same?
Correct. I had taken pictures and had already identified from the information from the phone physically
Pictures.
from it being stamped on
Sort of
the
kinda like
back
pictures.
of the phone under the battery. So I was able to take a look at that information and compare it to what Cellbrite had identified the phone as.
Okay. Then after Cellbrite, is that when you next went to the, and I keep saying it wrong, but the Internet Evidence Finder program?
Yes, I use that as a secondary software.
And why do you use two?
One tool never extracts all the information out. And I like Internet Evidence Finder because it presents the information to the investigators in a readable format.
And same thing with that download or extraction, are you able to kind of cross-reference it and ensure that the document or version that it's giving you to read the information matches up to the phone itself?
Yes, I do.
And this extraction that's taking place with
Dreaming.
these two programs, are you manually doing anything or are you just kind of watching it to confirm it's pulling it out correctly?
Well, with Cellbrite, you actually connect the phone via cable to the computer that has the Cellbrite software. And that software will access the phone and extract the information out.
Okay, and what about with the internet evidence?
Internet evidence finder works the same way. It identifies the phone and then it extracts the information out of it.
After both of those extractions are complete through both of those programs, what happens next?
Once that's done, I then start generating the reports for the investigators.
Okay. When you say generating the reports for investigators, what do you mean by that?
Take an instance of Cellbrite identifying the text messages. I do believe for this particular case, I generated text messages in a PDF format and also in an Excel format for their viewing.
And when you say generated, are you creating that or are you just making it readable? Explain that.
The software will present the text messages, and then you have an option to click on a button that says export. And then at that point, you say whether you want a PDF format or an Excel format.
Any of the information that you exported or put in a PDF or Excel format, did you modify or change it in any way?
No, I did not.
At that point, is it then that you're sort of putting it in the you're preparing your report for law enforcement? Do you ultimately turn over a disk to law enforcement?
Yes, I do.
And does that disk contain everything that you described from those different software programs?
Yes, it does.
Anything that's contained on it, is it a document that you personally have modified or created, or is it what is coming from the software program?
It's coming from the software program, and we're also putting it on a DVD that's read-only. So really,
So you
it
can't
can
change
be
it.
modified from the disk itself also.
And is that what a read-only DVD means, that it's not something that can be altered?
That's what she
You
just
can write
said.
to it once it's been written to.
Ms. Bergkorn, I'm
ever
showing you
tried
as a
anything
pre-marked
that
State's
says
Exhibit 64
read-only?
for identification purposes. Prior to now, have you seen this
Can't
document?
do anything. to
Yes,
it.
I have.
Okay, and do you recognize it?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize it?
These are reports that were generated from the magnetic forensics Internet evidence finder software.
Okay, from the extraction you performed on the LG office.
Especially when they say,
Yes.
"Hey,
And are they a fair and
can
accurate depiction
you
of
do
what
something
was
with this?"
generated
And
by the
I'm
extraction that you
like,
performed
"Nope,
in
because
November of
I don't have
2000?
access to do
Yes, it
anything
is.
with
You're
it."
not understanding
It
that's
is
the evidence.
read-only.
64. Can we approach?
Yes.
And they say, "Oh, it shouldn't be," and I'm like, "Oh, well, it is. How unfortunate for
All right, we'll go
you."
ahead and take a 10-minute break then. Ladies and gentlemen, the jury, yourselves, anyone else, look anything about the case or be exposed to any media reports about the case. All rise for the jury. We'll take a 10-minute break.
She's gonna continue.
Yes, sir.
You ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's bring them in.
She looks
All
angry.
members of the jury are present, seated. Everyone else is seated.
I like
Jury, welcome
this
back. Let me
attorney.
just ask, because I need to make sure that I
She's-
do it on the record, and I may not have done it every other time we've brought you back or even started this morning.
I don't.
By show of hands, did anybody have any exposure to
This
this
one is
case in the form
bitchy.
of media, social
I
media,
mean,
or anything
both
like that
bitchy.
outside of the courtroom? At any time prior to coming back today, during any of the breaks, during lunch, or during this break? All right, let the record reflect no show of hands. Also, just in abundance of caution, did anybody discuss the case amongst themselves or with anyone else at any time? Let the record reflect no hands. We're going to pick up where we left off, and I'll allow you to begin.
Thank you. Ms. Bergkorn, so I was about to show you State's Exhibit 64, and I'm showing you now State's Exhibit 64A. What I would like you to do for us is tell us, if you could, what we're looking at here. Let me zoom in a little more, sorry.
You're looking at Chrome searches that were made on the phone.
Okay, and what I want you to describe is
Damn
in the top left, we
searches.
see IEF report viewer. Is that in fact the internet evidence finder program that you have described?
What are my most
Yes, it is.
recent
Okay.
searches?
Is this a
in
screenshot
Chrome.
from what we would see in that program?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and so tell us, you
Scary
said that we're looking
Christmas
at Android
movies.
or Internet Chrome searches, is that correct?
Yes.
On the
Oil
left-hand
changes
side
near
of this
me.
screen here, we see web-related and then a bunch of things underneath. Tell us what
Ethan
all that is.
Crumbly.
When it says it's web related, it means it has things to do with a connection to the internet
Okay,
and getting information off the internet.
but I guess I mean in the broader sense, this screen, what is contained on the left side? Is that sort of everything that was pulled off the phone, or explain that?
This is information that was extracted from the phone.
Okay, and then in the top box here, what I'm referring to here, the top kind of right side box, what is that?
The first column, which says search query, indicates what was searched for, the phone's date and time, and source and evidence information, which is just for phone information.
Okay, so where it says search query and then we see words underneath there, that would indicate things that were searched for on the phone.
Yes, search for on the phone, or maybe even downloaded.
Okay, it could be searched for or even downloaded. Okay, and in the search date and time, what is that date and time reflective of? What does that indicate?
It's reflective of the time that the phone is recognizing.
And for the record, Judge, this exhibit is actually 64A through R, and that was 64A.
Okay.
Showing you State's Exhibit 64B, are these more Android Chrome searches?
Yes, it is.
And 64C, more Chrome searches.
Are these searches relevant in any way? Like, what is on them?
Yes.
Can we get to that?
All right, now State's Exhibit 64E. What do you see here?
That appears to be Google searches.
So what's the difference there?
It's just how the phone or the person who's on the phone is interacting with the internet.
Okay.
Google may be a Google search. The Chrome might have been the application that was used to get onto the internet.
As opposed to like Internet Explorer.
Correct.
Okay, State's Exhibit 64G. What is this?
That is an email.
Okay, and how do you know that? On the left-hand side of the screen, we see IEF refined results, chat, document.
Right, and it's under the email category. It's under the email category.
And then within that, it says Android Gmail.
Correct.
Does this indicate to you that this comes from a Gmail?
It comes from a Gmail account, yes.
Okay, and in the very top of the the page here,
She is
in
leading
the very
the
small
witness.
section there where it says addresses to, from, does this
Just
indicate that this is
FYI.
an email that was received or was sent?
It appears to be one that was received. It was received.
Okay. And again, the date and time on it is reflective of the date and time that the phone was set to.
Yes.
Do you, wait, 1 second. Are you familiar with UTC time?
Yes, I am. It's a universal time code.
Okay, what is that?
It's just it's the code where it starts with 0. When you look at time zones, you have your time zone of 0, and then it like Eastern Standard Time -5, away from that. Other countries could be +5, moving away from it in a different direction.
Okay, and we'll look at State's Exhibit 64C at the top here. Does that indicate to you that these times are appearing in UTC time?
Yes, it does.
So does that mean that they're actually some hours before or after what would have been the actual time on the phone?
Correct.
State's Exhibit 64I. Is this another email?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and can you tell from this whether this is an email that was received or sent
It appears to have been sent.
by the Gmail account that was on the phone?
Yes,
And in the from category, does it appear to be sent by Nicole Nachtman?
that's what it appears to be.
What is this here? And I'm referring to in the top middle of the document where it says scan 0001.pdf. What does that refer to?
It's referring to an attachment that was sent with the email.
And as a part of the extraction process, do attachments that were attached to emails, are those also extracted from the phone?
If it's possible, yes.
All right. State's Exhibit 64K. What does this appear to be?
It appears to be another email.
And can you tell whether this was a received or sent email by the Nicole Nachtman Gmail account?
It appears to have been received.
Received to that account.
Yes.
And the from portion of it, do you see what email address that is?
Not fully, but it appears to be another email.
The beginning of it being that spec 735.
Yes.
Scrolling down to the bottom portion, I'll zoom out for a moment. Scrolling down to the bottom portion of this document, what is this down here in the bottom middle portion of the document?
It appears to be
Yes,
the
what is
header
it?
portion of an email.
Okay, so in this viewer
I
program,
don't.
when you click on
No,
something
I
in the top
can't
portion,
see
does
it.
open up essentially in the bottom portion.
Yes, it does.
And is that what appears to be happening in 64K?
Yes, it does.
64L.
64,000.
What does this appear to be?
It appears to be another email.
Received or sent?
It appears to be received.
Received to the Nicole Nachtman Gmail address
Yes,
from that spec 735.
yes.
And what is the date and time that you see it was sent?
You're gonna have to make it a little larger.
She has glasses, but she's
August
still
20th,
can't see.
Okay,
2015,
and what is the time that you see?
11:16.
So if we see in the body of the email that it says, do you see the date and time reflected in the body of the email below?
Yes, I do.
And what is that date and time?
That date and time is August 20th, 2015, 3:13 p.m.
And State's Exhibit 64M, what is this appear to be?
Another email.
Sent or received?
Received.
To the Nicole Nachtman Gmail account?
Yes.
What is in them? Shit. Oh.
State's Exhibit 64O, what are these?
That is Chrome history, internet history.
So are these, so what does that mean, Chrome history, internet history?
It just means
the fuck you
websites
been?
or internet interaction that the phone had.
Okay, so websites that the phone actually went to.
It could be.
In the body of this, down at the bottom underneath the top box that we see in the bottom box, there's it says web page title. What is that?
That's just the title of the web page. Each page has a title.
Okay, and it says there Yahoo forgot email password Google search. Is that indicating a Google search that was done?
It could be, yes.
Na, 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 na. Hey, hey, hey.
Exhibit 64. This one.
Oh no. Oh,
So give me a
Mac-
column here in this middle column titled URL. What is that?
yeah.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry.
What's
In
a
this section,
URL?
the middle column, the left column that we see on the screen here entitled URL. What does that mean?
That's the web address.
Okay. So the web address that was went to on the phone.
Yes,
Okay. And then on the further right column, web page title. What is that?
that's the actual
Hunt's
title of that
death
web
row
page
inmate
from the web page address.
dies of natural causes at 69. That's how long it takes for you
Exhibit 64
to die on death row. You
Another,
die of natural
URL and web
causes.
page title that the phone would have gone to.
Yes.
In addition to these documents that were just shown to you in State's Exhibit 64,
Oh my
A through R,
God.
and the Google and internet activity, did you also have an opportunity to recover text messages off the phone as a part of the full extraction that you did?
Yes, I did.
And I should have asked, you indicated that the extraction takes everything off the phone. Is that correct?
Yes, it does.
So,
San Quentin,
internet activity,
California.
text messages, pictures.
Yes, images, locations, if there's any information stored like passwords or things of that
He
nature.
spent more than 30
notes,
years on California's death
web
row
information,
for
etc.
beating to
Okay.
death a woman and her 2-year-old daughter during a
And when it's all
burglary.
taken from the phone and extracted, does it put it, you indicated a disk is then provided to law enforcement, a read-only disk. Is it categorized?
Well, I break out the reports as to the different types of information that they're receiving.
Ms. Berghorn, I'm showing you what's been pre-marked to State's Exhibit 70 for identification purposes. Prior to today, have you had an opportunity to look
He
at
was
that document?
sentenced to
Yes, I
death
have.
in San
And does that
Diego
document fairly and accurately depict text messages that you recovered or that were
In
recovered off of the phone during the
1988
extraction you
for
performed?
the December
does.
Fair and estimated evidence, State's Exhibit 70.
1985 killings.
All right, Ms. Berghorn, I'm going to go by page number on this. I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 70.
Jesus.
At the top of this document, what does this appear to be?
An extraction report.
Okay. There's a
There are
portion of the extraction
675 people
report
on
that's a
death row
portion
in
of it, obviously,
California.
not
The
entire
state
extraction
last
itself,
carried out an
correct?
execution in
This is a portion of it
2006.
containing SMS
Why do you even have the
Yes.
death penalty if you haven't killed anybody since
SMS messages
2006?
are just short messages that
That shit's
one can make
stupid.
from their cell phone.
And at the top here, we see page 329 of 421. Would that indicate essentially 400 pages of messages?
No, it means that I took several different categories and I made them into one report.
Okay, into one document.
Yes,
So SMS messages that we see here being 859, does that reflect there being
So they want
859
to
short messages?
stop
Yes.
the death penalty and then move all the What
Page
is happening?
330 of State's
Why
Exhibit
would you do
70. All right. Okay. In the left column, we see the
Moratorium
numbers
on
that just kind of numbering the
execution
messages.
while he is governor
And then inbox,
is
what's
moving
that
to
reflect?
It means that
dismantle
inbox means that the message came in.
Okay. And then we
United
also
States'
sent. What is
largest
that?
death
That means that the
row
message was sent
by
from the phone.
moving all the
The
condemned
number that we
inmates
see in the
to
third
other
column, what is
prisons.
that?
That's generally the phone number.
Okay. And then in
Just
this column,
do
in some of
what
these,
they
we
were
see
do
Miriam
what they were
Deans.
told to
Is that a
do.
name that you would have put into this report?
No, what the software does is it looks at the contacts on the phone, and if it can match the phone number to a contact, it will list the contact name there.
So this is something the software itself is doing.
Correct. The contact name is in the phone under contacts. The phone number is in the SMS message. So it's reaching out and seeing if it can make the match on the contacts to put the phone number there.
And it just kind of automatically puts that in. You're not manually doing it.
I'm not manually doing it now.
Okay. And the date and time in the fourth column here, it says UTC +0. We see dates and times there. What is that?
Again, that's just the date and then the time of the universal time code. The +0 just means that's neutral standard and it's not going either negative or positive in either direction.
And then the sixth column, SMSC. What is that?
I do not know.
Okay. Does it have anything to do with the message that we see on this document?
Objection, she just said she doesn't know.
I do not know.
Who is Ted Cruz?
The next column that says status. What is that?
It means whether it was sent or read.
And the next one that says message.
That is the short message that was sent.
Home of
Will the entire
Senator
message
Ted
appear in
Cruz.
that box or column?
It should.
Does it
Senator.
cut it off or anything to your knowledge?
Not that I'm aware of.
And in the last column, it says delete. What does that mean?
It just means that the message was deleted.
So based on that, is it fair to say that the extraction process will recover deleted information from the phone as well?
Yes.
Can I just have one moment, Judge?
Yeah.
Just have one more question for Ms. Burke, I'm sorry. Student Exhibit 64K. We see here in the to address Nicole Nachtman in quotes. What does that mean? Like as opposed to right below it, you see Nicole Nachtman at, and it appears to be an email. How is it that some of them are like titled like that?
I'm not sure. It would be an interpretation from the software.
Okay, so it's something the software pulls out.
Mhm.
All right, is that a yes?
Yes.
And then going down to the right, we see the from address and we see spec 735 in quotes. Then going down below into the body of the message, spec 735 at yahoo.com. What does it indicate who that email or what that email is associated with, what name that is?
Yes, it's associated with Robert Dines.
Okay, and is that a name that, again, the software is pulling out from the phone?
I do not believe so. I think it may be coming in with the email.
Okay, so that's the name that's on the email that the phone's pulling out.
Correct.
Same thing with above that, the name Miriam Deans, and then the email that's addressed to that. Same thing, that's something that's contained within that email itself.
It could be.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. I'll pass it over to you.
Cross-examination.
Good afternoon, Mr. Burke.
Good afternoon.
Now, you indicated that the data you extracted from this phone you were given had a lot more stuff than just those two exhibits.
Can you repeat with more clarification?
When you extract and download all the data from this phone, you had indicated, or I thought you had said, there's things like photographs, if there's videos, there's
Yes.
context. A lot more than just these two exhibits that Ms. Derry just showed you is what I mean.
Yes.
Was extracted and downloaded onto a disk, which was later then given to the case detective.
Yes, there was.
And I think you said on direct that typically in a situation like this, you don't really know the details about an investigation or a case.
That's true.
You're given this device, asked to extract or download any data that may be on the device, and then it's later up to the case detective or whoever submitted the device to determine what's important and what's not on the device.
That's correct.
You don't do any of that analysis.
No, I do not.
So you have no idea what any of this information that Ms. Derry just asked you about has anything to do with Nicole Nachtman or her case.
No, I do not.
I want to ask you a couple of questions about some of the
Yeah,
entries.
so don't be mean to her. You little snatch. She is a nice lady.
64A. You got-
Yes, I can.
You had indicated that these are basically internet or Chrome searches, which we see over here on the left-hand side, right?
Yes.
So this one that happens to be highlighted in blue, it says getting away with murder, which was searched on August 1st, appears to be song lyrics from some song. Is that correct? If you look down,
I can only see what's on the list.
right, so if you go down, that same entry appears to say murder lyrics, as if it's some type of song. Is that what that says? You see where I'm pointing?
It says, well, getting is not spelled correctly, but it says getting away with murder lyrics.
As if to imply maybe some kind of song.
Perhaps.
Now, are you able to tell us what, like, if an actual song lyric was downloaded or anything like that, or any file associated with that?
When it says source, it's indicating where it was located on the phone, and the evidence number is just the evidence number that it is on, that it was given.
So we can't tell from this document whether maybe some song lyrics were downloaded in a separate file or anything like that.
No, we cannot.
64B, again, another blue highlight. This appears to be a search. Again, we're at Android Chrome searches, correct?
Yes.
The process for dropping out of college. Does that indicate that that's the search terms that are put into the Chrome system, or what is that when we read that, for example?
It means that at some point, part of that process of dropping out of college was typed in.
Cause the day bleeds into nightfall. This
64,
is at
G.
1.5
I believe you were shown this
and
document
it's
that appears to be
still
some sort of email that starts
deplorable.
off Nicole Nachtman, and it appears to be something to do with housing. Where does this indicate as far as the date and time this was sent, where it's indicating that they're telling Nicole Nachtman she has a space available on campus? Are you able to tell from this document the date and time that this was sent to her or opened?
It appears to be August 19th, 2015.
And is that from the top, that blue highlight at the top of the
Yes,
document?
yes.
And that was gonna be my next question. There's various columns up there. How are we to tell when something is sent versus when someone actually opens it or accesses it? Okay, so I can send you an email today, right now at 2:26 on July 26th, and you don't open it, let's say, till 9:30 p.m. tonight. Where is that gonna tell me that information on a document such as this or any of these columns?
It may not.
Okay, so what this says is that an email was received
Don't get a
from
read
housing on
receipt
August 19th,
unless you
but
ask
nowhere
for
in this
it.
document, from what you can see, lets us know whether the person saw it, opened it, or for that matter, accessed it.
That is correct.
As far as the
You
dates
can
that are
request a
covered,
read receipt.
and I'll show you page 1 just to clarify. I'm
And
sorry,
an
A,
email.
64A. It appears that the only communications reflected or searches or data begins.
But
and
you know
appears
she
the first
got
day,
it because
August
she
1st
said
of
she
15.
needed
Is
the
that correct?
$100.
Yes.
And then I'll show you the last one,
So what's the
which is
point?
64R. And it appears the ending date would be August 21st, 2015. And then what does it indicate the last time is?
1:06.
Now, let me ask you this. Sometimes when data or cell phone records, they're reported in universal time, where sometimes you got to subtract like 4 hours or add 4 hours. Do you have to do that with this type to get it in real time or Eastern time, or do you know?
The system reported it in UTC time. If it needs to be adjusted, it would have to be adjusted manually.
By 4 hours, is that correct, to get it to Eastern Standard Time? Is that your understanding?
Either 4 or 5 hours, depending on daylight savings times.
So these times would not have been reflected Eastern Standard Times for any of this information.
I don't believe so.
It's also fair to say, in addition to not being able to tell us based on this report or this data when someone may have opened or accessed one of these communications, you also can't really tell us, for that matter, who sent what.
No, I cannot.
Without standing in front of the device or observing the person actually sending messages or receiving messages, there's no way to tell from what you did in this case to determine who actually sent or received any of these communications or did any of these searches.
That is correct.
Now, with regard to the text message document, and that states Exhibit 70, you had kind of identified for us the various columns, and if you need to see the document, let me know. And you had indicated sometimes in the party column, while there'll be a phone number, sometimes a name will be referenced in it if the contact was pulled associated with that phone number within the device. Is that what you said?
That is correct.
But you were not asked, nor do you know what various names in this report are as far as whose phone number belongs to who.
No, I do not.
When Miss Derry was asking you about the internet searches back, going back to State's Exhibit 64, I thought I kept hearing you say those could have been the searches. What did you mean by could?
Because when you're doing searches on the internet, there are times when you might click to link to another link. When you go onto a website page, there's usually like ads or other information that could pop up. That information could also get captured by the phone.
So what you're telling me is you can't say that on State 64 that in fact, when we see those, and let me show it to you again, just so we're all on the same page. 64A. For example, the song lyric one, I didn't need to write on the screen and I have no idea how to do that.
There's a button you push.
There we go, clear. Apologize. So when I was asking you earlier about this getting away with murder song lyrics, you're indicating to me that that column could have picked up, let's assume someone went in and pulled up the lyrics to a song, and then ads start popping up on that website. Those ads are also going to be reflected on this column?
No, ma'am. Those are searches and those have been typed in.
Okay, so what were you discussing earlier?
We were looking at the URL, web pages and web titles.
I'm going to show you stage 64 and you show me which document you were talking about.
Thank you.
So you pulled out 64O. Was this the only one or were there more than one?
I do believe there was more than one.
But let's just start with 64O. So these that indicate Android Chrome history in the left-hand column, and then in the right-hand column, they appear to have, I guess you call them URLs or website addresses, I guess?
Yes.
What you mentioned earlier about these could be reflective of searches done. This could also include what we just described a moment ago, where I go onto a specific website and then that website takes me to other things and that would be picked up on this list. Is that what I heard you say?
I think I need to clarify that there's a difference between a search and a web history.
Okay.
A search is when you actually type in information where you're looking to search for something through Google. Internet history is when you actually go onto a website page and it's collecting that information of pages that you've gone onto.
Got that part. Now I want to go back to the could be or could reflect what this person actually went on as far as website addresses or URLs.
When you're on a website and other ads or such pop up, you may select those. If you select those, that information will also be collected.
So this list could encompass addresses that the individual typed in and then addresses that may have popped up while they were on that address and then that person went on to that additional URL.
It could. It collects all the history that as you're going through the internet.
So you pulled out states O as a possibility for that concept. Trying to go through my alphabet here. States P, is that the same situation with P?
It could be. I don't want you to get the impression that the phone is just arbitrarily going through the internet on itself.
Right.
It's having some interaction with a human.
Right, so the human is getting into a website and then maybe there's these pop-ups or ads popping in and if they click or go onto those additional things, this list is going to capture.
Yes.
Doesn't necessarily mean that this list includes only what the user typed in into that web address box at the top.
That again is a search. Okay, we're talking about web history now. We're talking about the websites that the user actually went onto.
Okay, and so the same would apply to states P, the document in front of you?
Yes, it indicates the history, the internet history.
States Q
Yes,
and states R.
yes.
Thank you. I can have a moment, Judge?
Absolutely.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you, Mr. Bergman.
You there, right?
Here we are.
Okay, this witness be excused by the state
Yes, sir.
and by the defense.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. You may be excused as a witness at this time. I'll ask the state to call your next witness.
Lacey Zacher.
Lacey Zacher.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Zacher, good afternoon. You'll come forward to be sworn wherever you're comfortable. If you'll face me and raise your right hand, please. Thank you. Do you swear affirming testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. If you'll follow the bailiff around as the ramp that leads up to the witness chair, please watch your step. When you get to that chair, go ahead and have a seat. Make yourself comfortable. That microphone is adjustable.
And Your Honor, prior to speaking this witness, the state would move into evidence State's Exhibit number 48, which is the certified business record.
Any objection? It'll be admitted.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Please state your full name and spell your last name for the record.
It's Lacey Zacher, Zacher.
Thank you. Ms. Zacher, are you employed?
Yes, ma'am.
Where are you employed?
The Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office.
And what is your position with the Sheriff's Office?
I'm currently a training specialist.
Okay. How long have you been employed in total with the Sheriff's Office?
Almost 10 years.
Prior to becoming employed as a training specialist, what was your prior position?
I was a senior criminal intelligence analyst.
How long were you employed in that capacity?
Over 9 years.
And is that the position that you were working in May of 2016?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us what that position entails.
So as an intelligence analyst, we typically look at different types of crime data and offense data, and we try to identify patterns and trends within the data and try to identify known offenders that would kind of match up to those patterns and trends. And then we also assist in criminal investigations whenever necessary, whenever there's data involved that they need help either analyzing or visualizing.
Okay. Were you a sworn law enforcement officer?
No, ma'am, I'm civilian.
Okay. Do you work with, you said that you work on investigations, do you work with detectives, do they bring you evidence and you help kind of go through it?
Yes, ma'am.
Are there various software programs that you are familiar with to enable you to perform that job as a criminal intelligence analyst?
Yes, ma'am, lots of software.
Okay, and I want to talk specifically as it pertains to cell phone records.
Okay.
Tell us what types of programs you would utilize to help provide this assistance on cell phone records.
So there's a few, Cellhawk would be one, and Cellhawk mostly is used for, like I said, data visualization. So the evidence, the records are still the same, but these tools kind of just assist in making the data more easily visualized. Another one is ArcGIS, which is also a mapping program, and it's pretty much just mapping the data points on a map. Another one we would use is Google Maps. Pretty much they all perform the same functions. It's just a matter of kind of which tool is the best in which situation.
Okay, so I want to turn your attention back to May of 2016.
Google Maps.
I'm involved as a criminal intelligence analyst in a case involving Nicole Nachtman.
Yes, ma'am.
And what were you asked to do as it pertains to that case?
I was provided some cell phone records, and I was just asked to create a video map of the records.
And is that the time, May of 2016? Were you involved in the case at any time prior to that?
No, ma'am.
I'm showing you what's been introduced as State's Exhibit 48. If you could take a look at this exhibit, take a look through it and let us know if you recognize that.
I don't want to grow up.
Yes, ma'am. So these are the phone records that I was provided.
Okay, the phone records that you were provided for what phone number?
The number is 813-506-2994.
Blah, la, la, la.
And when you were provided with those phone records that you have in States 48, were
That
they
is
in
not
an electronic format? Or
anymore.
Yes, ma'am. They were electronic.
Okay, and is that common? Is that usually the way?
Yes,
you do
ma'am.
that?
Yes, ma'am.
So when you received, and I'll take them back from you. When you received these records in an electronic format, tell us what you did with them.
So I kind of review them, kind of look them over, see what I have, what the time frame is on the records, just to kind of familiarize myself with them. And then in this case, I imported them into Cellhawk, the software. There's no manipulation or anything of the data. The software recognizes the file that I just import into it, and then it plots that data on the map itself. And then I can just kind of look around, do different animations, in this case, like a video of the records.
So you said that you utilize Cellhawk to do this.
Yes.
Is Cellhawk a program that you've used before?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it something that you've been trained in how to use?
Yes, ma'am.
A program that you're familiar with?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said that it doesn't, I think you said it doesn't change or modify the information, is that correct?
Correct.
It just puts it into a map to visualize it?
Yes, ma'am.
When it's put into that map to visualize it, are you then able to go back and look at the records themselves to see if it's the same information?
Yes, and that's general practice. I'll go back and I'll check the records that I'm looking at on the map, and I'll verify that with the actual data in the records.
The records that you were provided, do you recall what date range was covered in those records?
I believe it was, August 12th of 2015 through August 21st
Of 2015?
of 2015.
That's when they died.
Ms. Sacker, I'm going to show you what's been pre-marked as State's Exhibit 66 and State's Exhibit 49A through D. And looking at State's Exhibit 66, do you recognize this?
I have not seen it before.
Okay. Do you recall creating a video in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And was that video contained of the GPS plots in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And in State's Exhibit 49A through D, do you recognize that?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you recognize those?
I created the maps.
Okay. Are those
I
a fair
did
enough
it.
depiction of the maps
Those are
that you created?
my initials.
Yes, ma'am.
And blah dee dee blah.
Fair enough.
Blah dee dee blah.
49A through D.
Just the maps.
Yes, just.
There'll be a bid.
Judge, if I could just have a moment.
Yes.
And I ask for permission to publish, Judge.
Okay.
All right, Ms. Sacker, I'm showing you State's Exhibit 49A.
Nightfall,
Tell us what we're looking at here.
not here.
This would be for the date of August 18th, 2015. Sorry if I point. The red star in the middle is representative of the address 14108 Fensbury Drive. And then the dots you see with the coordinate next to them, those symbolize a cell phone tower. The dates,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
the dates and times there associated with those towers are the, according to the records, those would be the dates and times that a call utilized that tower.
The information that we see in States 49A, these, the dates and times and that sort of thing, is that information that's taken directly from the cell phone records?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What is this? 28.092, what is that?
So that's the coordinates. Those are also referenced directly in the records. Those are the actual coordinates of the tower location.
Okay, like latitude and longitude?
Yes, ma'am.
Of that tower location?
Yes, ma'am.
So if we look here at the top coordinate at 8:18 at 18:50 hours, and then showing you State's Exhibit 48, the cell phone records from Metro PCS, and we look here at 8:18 at 18:50 hours. Do you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
As we go across here, the latitude and longitude that is shown, would that then be the same latitude, longitude that we see in States 49A?
Yes, ma'am.
And so on, does that continue as we go through the records?
That's correct.
And so does this map pinpoint the places that were contained on those records that this phone would have been at those dates and times?
Not necessarily the location of the phone, but the tower that phone utilized to process the call.
So explain what that means.
So the phone itself doesn't have to be at the same place the tower is, but when you make a phone call,
So explain what that
it's
means.
going to kind of pick
I
up
don't
its nearest
fucking know.
signal from the nearest tower, and that's what's going to process that call on that device. So the pinpoint itself is not of the device, but it's of the tower that the device
And the
utilized to place the
night
call.
falls.
So the tower
Oh my
closest
God.
to where that phone was when it was used.
Should be closest to, not a precise science.
Sure. It's in that general vicinity.
Correct.
And is that why for some of the calls on, for example, 8:18, 18:50 hours, we see 3 calls in that same general location?
Correct. They utilize that same tower.
States Exhibit 49B, what is this of?
Same type of similar information. This is just for the date of 8/19/15. This was all of the records for that day.
With the reference point of 14108 Fensbury Drive, still on there as the red star.
Correct. And the towers are still the blue dots.
Okay, so these blue dot towers, we see 1, 2, 3, 4, is that accurate?
Yes, ma'am.
And then everything above the tower on the top, those are all, in some way, the phone being used near the vicinity of that tower.
Correct.
Is that just phone calls or text messages? What?
Can I do the records?
Yes.
Yeah, those would all be phone calls. Only phone calls.
Okay, and State Exhibit 49C. What is this?
Again, same type of data extracting now. This is for August 20th of 2015.
Still with Fensbury Drive as the reference point in the red star.
Yes, ma'am.
And 49D. What is this?
So this is the data for August 21st, 2015.
Okay, and where is this map a location of?
This is near the Tallahassee area. If you kind of look to the left of the map, you can see where it says Tallahassee.
Let's say just December 7th.
Take this one more for you. I'll pass the witness charge.
Hi.
Hi.
Now, as far as your training, you actually have a business degree, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh my God.
And
I
prior
need
to
to
your
move my
work at the
legs.
Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, you worked as an operations analyst.
Yes, ma'am.
So you had no formal training as far as education in IT or computers or anything like that with regard to analysis about cell phones and things like that.
No, ma'am.
In fact, when you worked at the sheriff's office and at the time you did this case, you were really working in terms of trying to research crime trends, patterns, things like that, as far as analyzing information the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office was, I guess, obtaining.
Yes, but one way we do that is through mapping. So mapping in general, maybe not specifically to cell phone records, but mapping in general is something that is done regularly.
And really, any training you had to do that type of analysis for the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office was mainly on-the-job training. I think you said you were there for 9 years.
Correct.
Now, as far as your training as it relates to actual cell phone records, like Ms. Derry showed you in State's Exhibit 48, really just online courses as far as your training in that.
Online courses, and then speaking with the companies themselves. So a lot of times when you get the records, like you can always call up their law enforcement line and ask questions.
Like, what does this code mean or this code
Correct.
mean or things like that.
Correct.
And as far as the software you use in this case, CellHawk, you've had one more online course?
Yeah, first.
CellHawk when you first started using it?
Yeah, and CellHawk was used for the video. The static maps we just looked at were ArcGIS.
prior to this case, you had never even really testified in court as it relates to cell hawk at all, had you?
No, ma'am.
Is this your first time?
Yes, ma'am.
And you definitely don't consider yourself any type of expert in cell phones or cell phone analysis,
No, ma'am.
or even cell phone mapping for that matter.
Correct.
You just obtain the data from the detectives, as in this case, they hand you a stack of phone records, and you plot them into, sometimes you use things like Google Maps, and then that's when.
Does anybody else ever
5, 6,
get like the
49,
restless
8 to be
leg
created.
thing?
Yeah, that was through ArcGIS.
I self-diagnosed
It's another type of mapping
myself.
software.
Like Google Maps.
Yeah.
Okay.
They all kind of work the same.
Now, as far as the coordinates that we talked about in 49, let me show you A first.
Okay.
These coordinates that you indicated that you get from the cell phone records, which document the longitude and latitude of the cell phone towers, you have no specific knowledge or information as to whether those are accurate or where those come from.
Correct.
You also didn't go out to these specific locations and verify that in fact, that cell phone tower that's on this map is really still in that location.
No, I did not.
Let's say Metro PCS moved a cell tower, or decided to
What?
add a new one to the area. You didn't do any of that type of verification.
Seriously?
In this case.
I did not do any verification, no, ma'am.
And you can't testify to where, in fact, T-Mobile or Metro, I believe these are Metro PCS cell towers are actually located within the Carrollwood area or the city of Tampa. As far
Only
as
to
the
the-
actual physical location where you went out and you said,
Right,
okay,
no, I didn't physically verify them or physically see them, no, ma'am.
you're also not able to tell this jury what a specific cell tower's reach is.
Correct, I'm not able to do that.
I think you testified on direct that you can't even, this map in no way tells you where the precise location of this cell phone was. Is that what you said?
That is correct, yes, ma'am.
What it's telling us is that. if
It
the
just
cell phone
tells
was
you
used
what
at the time of
tower
these
it
calls or text
uses.
messages, that it pinged off of this particular tower.
Yes, ma'am.
But it in no way tells us it was 100 feet from the tower, or it was 3 miles from the tower. You're not able to tell us any of that type of information.
Correct.
How close the actual cell phone was to these towers when these calls or these text messages were made.
Yes, ma'am.
In fact, you also can't tell us whether, if in fact there are 2 cell towers in kind of the general vicinity of each other, if it's pinging at the closest tower, or maybe it picked up a signal somewhere else because that signal may have been stronger.
Correct.
But how come in the
In
other
state
trial they
48,
could pick up
page
the
1,
GPS and the Google Maps?
Actual subscriber information page for this phone number that you've identified as 506-2994. And again, that's the phone number whose records you use
Oh,
to make the
boy,
maps
yes.
that the
I
state
gotta
showed
get
you,
up
correct?
and
Yes, ma'am.
Shit.
It's Miriam Deans, is that correct?
Sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
It also says the account name is Miriam Deans.
Yes, ma'am.
And you'd
Still
agree
right
Nicole
here.
Nachtman's name is nowhere on this document.
My leg.
Yes, ma'am.
Gosh.
I think Ms. Derry asked you, but just to be sure, you're not able to tell us from these phone records whether, or maybe you said you could, I wasn't sure, whether you can identify whether one of these entries is a phone call versus a text message or vice versa.
Yes, on the records, on the records themselves, it will say like outgoing call.
Okay, so you look to the DIR column, and let me show you states 48, just to be sure. This is the column you're referring to?
Ms. Fulcher, you wrote on the screen, if you could push that, thank you.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Incoming call and outgoing call.
And then what if something's a text message? What will it say?
You would see it in that column. It would say incoming text or outgoing
Okay,
text.
so we're to assume that at least for pages 1 of this document, everything's an outgoing call and an incoming call.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I have a moment, Judge?
Absolutely.
No further questions.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you, Ms. Tucker.
Ready to direct?
Yes, Judge, just briefly. Ms. Acker, Ms. Percy Bulgara had asked you if that you personally are not able to say, yes, there's a cell tower at that location, or whether Metro PCS may have moved the cell tower or anything like that, correct?
Correct.
In those phone records, does it say cell tower or does it say latitude, longitude?
I believe it actually says latitude, longitude.
Do latitude and longitudes change?
No, not for a
Nope.
specific point.
So while you can't tell us whether there's actually a cell tower, that little blue dot on the record, it's actually referring to a latitude, longitude that is then what you pull up on that map. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you indicated the ArcGIS program is analogous to Google Maps. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah,
So that latitude, longitude is something that can be put into any map?
correct.
Nothing further.
May this witness be excused by the state?
Yes, well, Judge, subject to recall.
Okay, all right. You may step down, but you are subject to recall.
Thank you.
You don't have to wait outside though.
Okay.
I'll ask the state to call your next witness.
Detective Samuel Portalatine.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, just so you know, we don't plan to finish this next witness. We're going to take it up to close to approximately 3:30 and get you out of here at 3:30. Detective Portalatine, good afternoon and welcome. If you'll raise your right hand to be sworn, thank you. Do you swear affirm any testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God. Yes, I do. Thank you. If you'll follow the bailiff around to the ramp that leads up to the witness chair, please watch your step. Just go ahead and have a seat. Make yourself comfortable. That microphone isn't done. Thank you.
Could I have the detective lean over to your bench with me and assist you for a second?
And I'll put on the.
Please state your full name and spell your last name for the record.
Yes, Samuel Portalatine. My last name is Portalatine.
Thank you. Are you employed?
Yes, I am.
Where are you employed?
With the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office.
And in what capacity?
I'm currently a sergeant with the Internal Affairs Section.
I'm turn your attention back to August of 2015. How long have you been with the Sheriff's Office?
Since September of 2008.
Okay. In August of 2015, what position did you hold with the Sheriff's Office?
I was a detective in the Criminal Investigations Division, and beginning in August, I went to the Homicide Section for a period of 3 months. At the time, they were doing sort of a 3-month trial for new detectives that were coming over for potentially working in the Homicide Section. And August would have been when I started that 3-month trial.
Did you have an opportunity during that period to respond to a call located at 14108 or 14110 Fensbury Drive?
Yes, I did.
And on what date did you respond to that location?
On August the 20th.
2015?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you given an assignment or a role as it pertained to that investigation?
Yes.
God,
I was assigned to assist the lead detective, Detective Messer. Had been an established homicide detective. My assignment that day was to sort of mirror him as part of that trial period to learn and also assist at the same time.
So what does that mean when you are assigned to assist the lead detective? What do you do?
Essentially, I'm there to help with whatever that detective might need done. Again, it was kind of a dual role for me in that I'm there to assist, but at the same time, my responsibility is to learn what is taking place and how investigations are put together at that point.
And about what time did you arrive at the scene on that date?
It would have been after 10 o'clock
Whenever
in the evening. I received a phone call from the then corporal of the homicide section to respond. I live about half an hour away from the incident location, so it would have been a little bit after that, maybe at 10:30ish, a little bit after that.
When you arrived on scene, was other law enforcement already present?
Yes.
Was the scene secure?
Yes.
Was Detective Messer present?
Yes.
What did you do after arriving on scene?
After arriving on scene, I located an area where it appeared to me that there was a group of detectives from homicide and supervisors gathered together. So I went there to get whatever information I could on what I was going to be assigned to do.
Okay. Did you begin to conduct interviews?
After
Take part in
briefing, as we call it, we got some initial information about what we knew, what we were going to have to do pretty recently after that meeting. I was assigned to go with Detective Messer and conduct or help in conducting some interviews with what we believe to be potential witnesses.
Okay. And who did you conduct interviews of with Detective Messer?
So if we were looking at the home where what I would describe as the incident scene, I believe it's 141, maybe 010 Fensbury. It was just to the left of that. There was a husband and a wife and a daughter. We conducted interviews with all three. Initially, it was the husband and the stepdaughter, and then later on, the mother came home and we interviewed her.
Okay. Would this be the residence where the female body was located in the driveway?
Yes.
Okay. And when you conducted the interviews of these people, were they recorded?
Yes.
Were the individuals separated for the interviews?
Yes, they were.
Did you also have an opportunity to take part in a search of that home?
Yes.
Okay. Was anything significant located?
No.
Did you learn information from them about the residence at 14110?
We did. Not much information, but we did learn some.
Okay. And what did you do next after that?
The next thing I did was I reached out to the Expressway Authority to find out. Detective Messer gave me some information about a vehicle, specifically a vehicle for Ms. Nachtman and Nicole Nachtman, and he wanted me to look into finding out if that vehicle passed by any toll booths or if there any video of that vehicle traveling anywhere. So I did that next with negative results.
Okay. Did you have an opportunity to search the area just immediately around 14110, the yard, the exterior of the home?
Yes.
During your search of the exterior of the home in that area, did you locate any signs of forced entry?
No, I did not.
Anything indicating a screen had been cut or a window broken, anything like that?
No.
Did you also have an opportunity to search sort of the streets and neighboring areas nearby?
Yes, I did.
Did you locate anything significant during that process?
I did not.
So you indicated that you attempted to obtain potential video from toll roads. Following that, what was the next thing that you did?
The next thing I did was join Detective Messer in his car. He made several phone calls to Nicole that were recorded, and I assisted with setting up. It's essentially just a digital recorder that has an earpiece that you plug into it. One earpiece would have gone in Detective Messer's ear, and that has a microphone. And from that, you're able to connect other earpieces, so you can listen to a conversation that's going on without the phone being on speakerphone. And the digital recorder also records the conversation as it's happening.
Prior to beginning this part in the phone call process, did you have an opportunity to meet with and speak to an Eric Lear?
I did not.
Okay, did Detective Messer?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, to your knowledge. And then you said that sometime after that, Detective Messer made a phone call to Nicole Nachtman?
Yes,
Okay, and you were able to observe or listen to that phone call?
correct.
What date and time did that take place on?
It was that same evening. I apologize, I don't recall the time exactly. I know it was getting pretty late in the evening.
The evening of
The 21st?
the 21st. Okay, so
I believe so. Or it could have gone into the morning of, I'm sorry, the evening of the 20th, or it could have gone into the morning of the 21st. I apologize. It was a long, lengthy period.
It was a
being awake.
long
Just
night.
merged together for me.
the hours just all blend together.
Yes,
But at some point, either late that evening or early in the next morning, that's when the phone calls were made.
correct.
How many phone calls were made, if you recall?
3.
And who was a part of those phone calls?
Detective Messer was the only one speaking, and I was just listening.
Was there also a phone call? Were you present for any phone call made with Eric Lear?
Yes, that took place later on, not at the same location. I believe we relocated to Nicole's grandmother's residence, and that's where that phone call took place.
Were all of these phone calls, both with Detective Messer alone and with Eric Lear, were they all recorded?
Yes,
During your time, I believe you said you later went to Eric's house or met with Eric. Did you also have an opportunity to speak to a Miriam Lear?
I know Detective Messer did. I didn't do most of the talking. I was present when they were talking, but I didn't have much a part of the conversation.
Okay, and were both Miriam and Eric cooperative with law enforcement?
Yes,
The phone call that was made with Eric Lear and Nicole Nachtman that you said was recorded by law enforcement, was that with Mr. Lear's consent?
yes, it was.
What happened after that?
After the phone call, Detective Messer and I actually went our separate ways. I thought we would be heading back home to get some rest, but I got a phone call indicating that I needed to go to the airport, that we were going to get on a plane and fly to Tallahassee. And I believe that was because Detective Messer did.
Do you hear that?
Well,
Or speculation?
I'll sustain it to speculation, but to the witness, not speculation.
And don't say what you believe, but you ultimately went to the airport and boarded a plane to Tallahassee.
Correct.
About what day and time was that?
That would have been on the 21st.
August 21st?
Yes.
Do you recall about what time, morning, evening, afternoon?
It would still have been the morning, but closer towards the afternoon.
Okay, and yourself and Detective Messer flew to Tallahassee.
Yes.
Did you at some point make contact with Nicole Nachtman in Tallahassee?
Yes, we did.
Did you meet with investigators from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement in Tallahassee?
Yes.
And did yourself, Detective Messer, work together with agents from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement when you were in Tallahassee?
Yes, we did.
I'm gonna skip ahead for a moment. During the time that you're in Tallahassee, are you actively yourself and Detective Messer relaying information back to Sheriff's Office detectives in Tampa,
Detective Messer was keeping me informed, but yes, he was in contact with them.
communicating with them?
Yes.
And during the time that you were in Tallahassee, did you learn at some point that a search warrant was obtained for a buckle swab for Nicole Nachtman?
Yes.
Okay, and tell us, what is a buckle swab?
So buccal swab essentially is just we take some cotton swabs and an individual's, the inside of their cheek is swabbed, sometimes on both sides to get a DNA sample. And that's what the buccal swab is.
Detective, if you could take a look at State's Exhibit 41, let us know if you recognize that packaging in the envelope.
Yes, I do.
Okay, and how do you recognize that?
This is my signature on the back on the evidence tape, along with my ABN or our officer number and the date, which I signed when I impounded this into evidence.
If you could open the package and take a look inside and let us know if you recognize the item inside.
Okay. Yes, so the item inside are envelopes that we put the cotton swabs in once we made the swab.
Do those appear to be in the same or substantially the same condition as they were when you obtained them on August the 21st?
Yes,
Just somebody has to move the evidence, Stacy Exhibit 41. No objection.
We did it.
And so Detective Portalatine, what you have in your hand, are those in fact buccal swabs that you personally collected from the mouth of Nicole Nachtman?
correct.
Okay? And did that take place in a room in Tallahassee?
Yes, it did.
Do you see Ms. Nachtman in the courtroom here today?
Yes, I do.
Can you point to an identifying article of clothing she's wearing?
Yes, she's wearing the green gloves.
Okay. In addition to your interaction with Ms. Nachtman, did you also have an opportunity to take part in a search of her dorm room?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and tell us about that, how that came about.
I was informed that a search warrant had been obtained for the search of the dorm room. I was relocated there with agents from FDLE. We approached the room and the search warrant was read. We entered and it was a sort of I would describe it as like a waiting area. I don't think it was a room that was really set up to be a permanent type residence. So there were several bunk beds and beds in there, but from my understanding is that it's a place where you wait until you get permanently assigned. So we walk in, begun my search to the left, and at that point, one of the agents notified us that the address, the actual numerical on the warrant that was obtained did not match what was on the door. So we stopped and backed out, and then I waited outside until they got that corrected and signed by the judge with the correct number on the search warrant, and then they came back, and then we started the search warrant there. And you kind of work on that methodically and start on one side of the room and then proceed through. And as you find something, you document it.
There's no objection from the defense. I'm going to introduce State's Exhibit 23A through G
Go be admitted.
and ask for permission to publish.
You may vote.
Sorry. All right, Detective, I'm going to show you what can introduce as State's Exhibit 23A. What do we see here?
That's a photograph of one of the chairs in that room, as described in some documents that I found that appear to be documents pertaining to the dorm room with signatures on them.
Okay. And 23B.
That appears to be a closer photograph of those same two documents.
23C, is that a closer view of one of those same documents?
Yes,
Did these documents, the reason for photographing and locating these documents, did they appear to pertain to Nicole Nachtman?
yes,
Have name and other indications on them indicating they belong to her?
correct.
State's Exhibit 23D, same thing?
Yes,
And these were all located in that room, and do you recall what that room number was?
I do not.
Okay. State's Exhibit 23E. What do you recognize or what do you recall about this picture?
So it's another kind of larger sofa chair in that same room with a Toshiba laptop and a kind of a laptop bag. That's what I would describe it as.
Okay. 23F,
That was a briefcase or suitcase that was in the room, and items of clothing that were in it as well.
and 23G.
That is what I recognize to be an Apple computer adapter.
Charger type cord.
Charger.
Fantastic. Wonderful. She doesn't know how to pack a bag.
Did you have a moment?
Absolutely.
She wasn't planning on staying.
Maybe Mr. Christine might go.
The hell?
Jury is present and seated. Everyone else may be seated at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, the jury, welcome back. Hope everyone had a nice lunch. We're going to pick up where we left off. First, let me ask. We are going to pick up where we left off. But first, did anyone have any exposure to this case outside of the courtroom? Do any research related to the case or discuss the case amongst yourselves or with?
No, we're not starting. I don't know what happened. They just ended with him. We don't get to see his cross. We don't get to see none of the things with him. That's fine. That's okay. I'm not too worried about it. I think my headphones died. That's fine too. I'm done. I'm tired. Well, that's all, folks. We kept this one under the 2-hour mark. Woohoo! Starting on day 4 tomorrow. Or, whenever we do this again. And then, because we've got Let me write this down. What video we're on. Where's my pen? Okay. Is it gonna be? Okay, so we're gonna do Kimberly Sutton. I guess she's a DNA analysis. School roommate and Connie Bell. Another school roommate? I feel like we did that already. Retired detective Mitchell Messer Jr. And then daughter's talking in her sleep. That's what she's doing. It's cute. That's day 5. Nope, that's day 4. Okay. Anyway, that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. Oh my God, get off my screen, bro. I don't know what happened. Okay, there we go. Like, comment, subscribe, share, and keep coming back. Keep watching. If I can get just get me up in the subscribers. Just do that. And keep watching the stuff. And it's doing so good. Things are doing so good. And I'm very pleased with the progress that it's making. That means people are watching and people are actually, kind of liking, the stuff that I do, which is cool. Don't be afraid. Say hello. Comment. That's fun. I may not like to talk to people in person, but I'll talk to you on the computer all day long. Okay? All right. That's been fun. See you on the next one. Peace out. G.